R.W. Southern, another historian. These are all, by the way, non-Adventist theologians and historians. R.W. Southern says this: during the whole medieval period, there was in Rome a single spiritual and temporal, that is civil, temporal authority, exercising powers which in the end exceeded those that had ever lain within the grasp of the Roman emperor. And John N. Fiji has this interesting comment. He says, in the Middle Ages, the church was not a state. It was the state. Or rather, the civil authority for a separate society was not recognized, was merely the police department of the church. Are you catching the picture of what this is talking about? What was the sword that the Roman Catholic papacy had in its hand? It was the sword, not of the Bible. It didn't use the Bible to persuade or to kill people. It used the civil power to accomplish its purposes, which it took over when the Roman Empire fell. By the way, it's interesting to read a bull by a Pope, Boniface VIII. It was written in the year 1302. The name of the bull is Unam Sanctam. And notice how he interprets the two swords. He says this: we are informed by the texts of the Gospels that in this church, that is the Roman Catholic Church, and in its power are two swords. So the church has how many swords? According to the Bible, how many swords does the church have? One. According to the Roman Catholic Church, how many swords does he have? Two. Notice. We are informed by the text of the Gospels that in this church and in its power are two swords, namely the spiritual and the temporal. Both, therefore, are in the power of the church. That is to say, the spiritual and the material sword. But the former, that is the spiritual, is to be administered for the church. But the latter, that is the temporal, by the church. The former in the hands of the priest. In other words, Scripture in hand of the priests. And the latter by the hands of kings and soldiers. That's the temporal sword. But notice how it ends. But at the will and sufferance of the priest. Are you catching what Revelation is talking about? Revelation chapter 13, when it says, he who kills with the sword will be killed with the sword. How did the papacy kill with the sword? It did not do it as a church. It actually influenced the state to do it. Do you remember our last lecture where we talked about what happened to Jesus? Could the church execute the penalty upon those, upon Jesus Christ? Absolutely not. So what did they have to do? They had to go to Pilate and they had to get the help of the civil power to kill Christ. Is that the very same thing that happened during the Middle Ages when the saints of the Most High were killed by this power? Absolutely. That's what prophecy teaches. So the question is, what happened in 1798? It must be that the sword that the beast used to kill, that sword arose and gave it the deadly wound. So who would give the deadly wound to the beast? It would have to be the what?